This is my Martin history video. So people are always wondering about buying Martins. Martins are probably America's oldest family-owned company. In 14 years, Martin is going to be 200 years old, owned by the same family. That's kind of phenomenal. I'm going to try to keep this little chat of ours under 5 minutes, so I'm going to set that up and put it back here, and you guys scream when you see that the green gone. That means I have to shut up. So in 1833, Martin came from Germany to New York City. The man got off the boat with his family, walked to a place where he could set up shop and started building guitars. 5 years later, in 1838, he went out to Nazareth, but the guitars made from that time period, which were all smaller bodied guitars, were labeled still New York. It was quite a few years before the New York label changed to Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Still to this day, you can get New York Martins, and they kind of look like this with the 12 fret neck joint. 12 fret neck joints are still popular today because the string vibrates more over the body and less over the neck, generating more tone, although people like the convenience of 14 fret neck joints. Now, during the Civil War, Martin was 35 years old. There are stories of a guitar player. At night, the two armies rested. Doctors moved back and forth, picking up bodies, lanterns, glowing lanterns going crisscrossing the battlefield while they ate their rations. And in that evening hours, there's story after story of somebody, and they don't know who, they don't know which side he was, singing a song for both armies to hear until they got up at dawn and fought again. That's our job as musicians. And Martin has been there at the Civil War. Now, moving up past the Civil War, 1860s, 1880s, in the late 1890s, Martin started serializing the guitars. Since then, if they make a guitar, they add a digit. So if they made one guitar, it was 1. If they made 10, it was 10. If they made 100, it was 100. You can take and look at any Martin serial number, like a 1932, and deduct the serial number from 1937, and you can find out how many guitars were made that year. During that time, in the turn of the century in 1900, you had a choice of spending either $18 for a 18 level mahogany guitar in any size you wanted. It didn't matter because it's only a little bit of wood. So for 18 bucks, you got a single O or a double O or a triple O. Then, if you had the money, you could spend $28 and get any guitar you wanted in any size you wanted in rosewood. Yeah, that's how it worked. Then if you wanted, you could spend $45, a mind-blowing sum of money in 1902, and get the 45 pearl trimmed Martin. Yes, that's how it went. So an 018 is that $18 guitar mahogany. Double O, 18. It's just the size. O, double O, triple O, and dreadnought, which came along in 1926. It's worth mentioning that during the Great Depression, Martin lived on ukuleles. This is a K5 from the 30s. So this was extremely expensive with all the pearl inlay on that. A gorgeous ukulele that I bet is not in tune. Oh, yeah, look, it is. Ukuleles kept Martin alive during the Great Depression. An important feature is in 1938, Martin changed their bracing pattern. Because in the late 30s, there was no electricity, or electric guitar, I should say. In the late 30s, people were using heavier and heavier strings on their arch tops. They applied these to the flat tops, and Martin, having a very skinny bracing pattern and this herringbone trim along all the models, decided that they needed to tighten up the bracing. So the first thing they did in 1938 is move that X away from the sound hole, closer to the bridge so it could withstand the tension of heavy strings. And then they did a few years later in 1944, they quit making scalloped braces because it was too light. So this is, my friends, a regular brace, and this is a scalloped brace where it's shaved down. All of these, to this day, are done by hand, not by machine, in a factory that employs a few hundred people. Martin guitars are at the top of their game for wood selection. They're at the top of their game for milling wood. They're at the top of their game for getting wood. And Martin guitars have always been heirloom quality. They don't change around very much. They just make superior sounding guitars that are meant to last a lifetime. And you know this, everyone, because I've said this before, but anytime you have herringbone trim on the edge of the guitar, those little V's, by the way, that means it's scalloped. So this brand new guitar I'm holding has both forward shifted, a reversion back to 1938, and scalloped braces. So what you get, because it has this V-shaped herringbone trim, is a guitar that is unbelievably loud for such a small-bodied guitar. They're fantastic sounding guitars, and as of last year, all the new standard Martins are reimagined with that forward shifting bracing, and so that, again, forward shifting means the X comes closer, bringing this area away from the bridge saddle. And if we could put little smoke inside of the guitar, as you played it, smoke would come out the sound hole from this air pump pumping sound inside the guitar. When you bring that X forward just that little bit, quarter inch, it gives your bridge area more room to breathe, and if it's scalloped, that gives your whole surface area more time and room to breathe. But it all has to be done with great wood. This is my 1932 Martin. As you can see, it gets played now and then. This is an heirloom. I would never sell it. And if you buy this 00028, this is an heirloom. It would never get sold. Here we go. I'm traveling through the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. The folk movement came along. They didn't really do scallop bracing again from 1944 all the way till 1976. They didn't do pearl trim at all in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. There was no pearl trim Martins, no D42s, no D45s. We get them now, but people take them for granted. Martin is famous for making tenor guitars. Oops, where is it for my display? There it is back there. Mandolins. They make superior mandolins. They make ukuleles, lots of ukuleles. If you're going to own one vintage Martin instrument, a ukulele might be that instrument to own, to keep, to cherish, to play. They made carved top arch tops. This is something we have for sale. It's a 1931 pre-war Martin. Look at the gold, the pearl trim in the headstock. This was the third most expensive guitar in the catalog because they had to carve it. They had a big piece of spruce that was carved out and carved on the top, carved on the inside for projection. Again, for volume to throw to the back of the wall because the electric guitar in the 30s was still in its infancy. This is the last thing I say as we travel along with our Martin history in this kind of Willie, half-sentence, awkward kind of way. We're traveling up to 1986, and you know what happened in 1986? The first adjustable truss rod for Martin. Gibson invented the adjustable truss rod in 24. Martin didn't take it because they fought against it because guitars sound better without it. And they finally conceded in 1986. That's the first full year you'll see an adjustable truss rod. My guitar here, that's 65 years old, doesn't have an adjustable truss rod. Yes, there's a rod running through it, but it's not adjustable. That rod is stiff as a board. There's not a cylinder in there for a rod to curve around in. So The truss rod, this doesn't have a truss rod. After 65 years, the neck is straight as an arrow. I've never adjusted it. So our authentic Martins have no truss rod. They also have all those early features of forward shifted, hide glue, all the things that drove people to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on heirloom Martins come in the authentics. We always have authentics in stock. We do have a sale going on in June, and we're going to extend that into early July on the acoustic guitars. But Martin guitars are hugely important to our culture. We invented folk, rock, jazz, and blues, and we invented the tools that made them cool. So I encourage you to come in. Something like a 1959 018 is a fantastic buy that will outlive you and me. There's pre-war Martins, copies of pre-war Martins, ukuleles, this funky little thing that is actually destined to go to a famous rock star that you and I all know by first name basis. And I just want to say the new Martins made as of last year, the new Martins with the scallop bracing and the forward shifting, the new Martins are fantastic. Fantastic. The best they've made. On that, I'll simply show off my cool guitar.